Michael, this question is for you. With these changes in the focus of our GPOs, are there still categories or sweet spots that supply chain leaders should look to the national GPO for assistance, or are there other categories out there that are best handled by the regional collaborative or even a traditional pure local agreement?
So my answer is yes and yes.
Okay.
So there are definitely targets that regional coalitions can activate and bring savings. We've been very fortunate in our small arena to find contracts that we were able to improve on or take categories where there were gaps and go after things like PPI, the physician preference items, purchase services, which is pretty wild these days, and it's across the board. We've had a lot of success in bringing fewer members than a big GPO. We have 72 members, and we've been able to really drive some nice savings in addition to what we had seen with GPOs. At the same time, and the line's kind of blurring, there are things that we're doing that the GPOs are now trying to help us with. There were things that the GPOs were doing that are moving over to us. So at the end of the day, it's that collaboration, I think, with regional coalitions, with purchasing, with group purchasing organizations, that's going to really benefit hospitals.
Okay. Preston, same question.
Yeah, I think there are certain categories of goods that we buy. Let's take orthopedic implants and cardiac pacemakers and defibrillators that the manufacturers of those do not sell them directly to us. They sell them through distributors, and they might have 25, 30 to up to 50 different distributors across the country. And those distributors all want to set their local price. The guy in New York wants to charge extra because he's got high labor costs. The guy in Montana wants to charge extra because he's got 6 hours to drive each way to do a case. And so consequently, sometimes when it comes to a national GPO trying to negotiate a contract, then the Depew, the Smith and Nephew, the Zimmers, they try to come up with a contract that all their distributors across the country will be happy with. And, that's always not the most competitive in every marketplace. So I think in some cases, negotiating your own contract or negotiating a group contract for hospitals that are in a said region that can just deal with the one distributor, like my area where we're in Pittsburgh, outside Pittsburgh. I think there's an opportunity for us to negotiate a regional contract with the regional distributors that are in that area and get the best price for us. Then the other question I ask is that if you're buying it directly from the manufacturer and the manufacturer is offering you a better price than your GPO, then my question is, do you have the right GPO in the first place? Maybe another GPO would be able to get you a better price, and that's up to each hospital to make that decision, or group of hospitals.
Joe, can we maybe talk, you and I had spent some time earlier talking about tactics and understanding that for each different category, there may be a different approach. Can you kind of walk us through kind of the model that you use to figure out what model or practice you need to follow?
Yeah, so to keep it kind of really simple, at Intermountain Healthcare, we have $2 billion of goods and services and software and equipment that we buy every single year. And those break down into 60 distinct categories. And those categories, if you think about them, can be allocated across different attributes if you spread them out. So let's just take two dimensions, almost like an X and Y axis. And let's just think about the X axis as saying, how often do multiple hospitals inside our system and outside our hospital system buy the same products with the same specification? How often are our buying patterns common across hospital systems? So kind of put that on a scale of 1 to 10 or 0 to whatever. Interesting to kind of think about it from that perspective. It's not the same, or even yes, no. It's the same or it's not the same. The other axis might be another question altogether, and that is, will the supplier, even if you actually aggregate, will the supplier allow you to actually aggregate? Will they value companies coming together? And what we have kind of figured out is that if we actually separate our 60 categories, they almost fall nicely into quadrants of 15, 15, 15, and 15 across those 4 scenarios that the X and Y axis create. That's really interesting because we only find one quadrant where aggregation, one and maybe another one a little bit, but one quadrant where aggregation is really the primary strategy. And it's the primary strategy because you're buying largely undifferentiated products and services where price is the thing that those things compete on. And therefore, aggregation makes sense in those categories because you're going to want to actually put your volume together and commitment together, and that's how you get maximum value. In the other categories, things like, I don't know, telemedicine solutions, even pharmacy, orthopedic implants, and categories like that, we don't derive the maximum value from getting the lowest price. The total cost of ownership, the total value equation, back to a CQO, price is just a very, very small fraction of the total value in those categories. In fact, utilization trumps the actual price in all those categories we just mentioned. So that might be something for us to kind of really explore is if you map this stuff out, it doesn't mean that GPOs don't have solutions for all four quadrants, but the aggregation tool in the toolbox of the GPO is not the right tool for every single scenario.